Well, here we go again. It's the last day of January of 2022. It's a Monday. I'm recording this a little bit earlier than I usually do during the week. So here we go with my playing music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic show number 54. That's 54 shows on YouTube. I record this for the radio station KPCA-LP 103.3 FM here in Petaluma, and it's viewed online at www.kpca.fm. And this will be broadcast on okay, now let me look at my calendar here again. I've lost track of things. On the 6th, February 6th, and at the usual time, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is midnight back on the East Coast. And okay, the views of the Midnight Skeptic, as bizarre as some of them are, but they're views that are humanistic, among other isms. That my views are. I lean left. I really do. I have some doubts about some of the things that some of the more PC, I guess that's not even a term anymore, politically correct Democrats hold. Republicans now call it woke. I did a show about 8 or 9 shows ago about the origins of the term woke, and I won't go into it again, but it's been appropriated by the Republican Party to indicate anything that pertains to just being aware that there's other people besides right-wingers that are on the face of this earth and want to be treated kindly and acknowledged and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so anyway, the views of the Midnight Skeptic should be the views of all my listeners, and my views are not the views of a handful of viewers and listeners. I do have a few Republican friends and very few Republican relatives. And when I go off on one of my political rants about what I think of Republicans in general, I'm mainly referring to Republican politicians or the type of MAGA heads that invaded on January 6th, invaded our Capitol, trying to overturn the election for the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay, so if you want to send me suggestions or complaints or compliments or requests about what I should talk about a little more, or hate mail or death threats, send them to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com, and that's all one word, the Midnight Skeptic, all lowercase, so I'll get it. Okay, shout outs, and I have some a small handful of international listeners brought to you by Anchor.fm, and they are, I'm not sure what the precise word is, but an accumulator of podcasts and YouTube presentations like what I'm doing here, and they disseminate it around the world. And one of the main ones is Spotify, and I'll be talking about Spotify a little bit later as regards Joe Rogan and the blowback that he and Spotify are getting. But anyway, the UK, Ireland, Germany, the Czech Republic, New Zealand, and Australia. I have a couple of in each of those places. Anchor.fm emails me a results of, well, who's listening. It can be kind of embarrassing because there's not that many international listeners. But anyway, okay, as far as stateside, and then one in Mexico City. Hi, Rosie. The East Coast, Geraldine Goldfinger, and then going on down to North Carolina, Herr Dr. David Rubin and his wife Vicky. And then further on down to the Edgewater, Florida area, that's Amelia Beamer. She edits this work in progress that I'm working on. It's a novel. I'm not going to go into anything about it, but she's helping me with it. And if it weren't for her, I don't know what I'm really doing as a budding novelist, but she knows because she's a published novelist herself, and I appreciate and pay for all her help. Okay, across the state of Florida to the other side, Sarasota, Nelson and Alice Lydell, and then over across to Arizona, my brother Brandon and his wife Mina and their daughter Andrea, who's a nurse there. I forget the name of the hospital, but please, Andrea, take care of yourself and take care of your husband Tim, ex-Marine, booyah, and their three little terrorists. And also in Arizona, Karina Hilliard, animal control officer. I think her number is 309. Anyway, if you run across a snake that's curled up in your kitchen or anywhere in your house, call up Patagonia, Arizona, Animal Control. She will be the one to come and remove it. She's a budding herpetologist. Okay, over to L.A., we got Jackie and Wayne Kolar, and going up the coast of California to Pacifica, we've got Stan and Kathy Gustafson, and further up in Sonoma County, Sebastopol, we've got Rich and Kathy Berger, and then going across the state to Sacramento area, Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored, and Dave and Rosie Takacs. That's a Hungarian name, and he's my late wife's cousin. He hails from back east. And locally, Nariman here in Petaluma, and Tim Conrad, a great photographer here in Petaluma, Tom and Nancy Throw, and then onward up into the mountains of California into Sonora, California, Bob and Sandy Fisher. And Bob was in my high school class. Sandy was a couple of years behind us. And then also in the Sonora area, Darrell Larson, Judy May, and Leonidas Maciel, and then all the way down to Mexico City, an ex-Sonora student, Rosamalia Lopez Negrete. And she listens in every now and then, and I see her Spanish language tweets now and then. Okay, so with all that, okay, let's get to the meat of the show. Okay, let's see, I have a little note here in the margin. Oh, okay, this is kind of from last week. I was ranting and raving about book banning, and in the case of some Republican politicians, book burning. I'm not quite sure how serious they are about it, but they're serious about involving parents in deciding what their snowflake Republican kids should be able to read. Okay. Now, on a couple of shows ago, I talked about in Fairfax County, Virginia, this game called Privilege Bingo, and I told all of you thousands and thousands of listeners out there that I would research the origins of this game. Well, who invented this? And I could not find the responsible persons. And I'm not totally against this, but it has its origins in identity politics. And it's a collection of resources for the teaching of social justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are all terms that Republicans are afraid of. Hearing those words sets their hair on fire. And I looked at a privilege bingo card online, and when I was searching for, who invented this, I couldn't find who invented this, but one of the squares is labeled military children. Okay. Meaning that if you're a child of a military family, you're privileged. Well, I kind of disagree with that. You may be privileged because of other reasons, but I don't think that that's a reason that you should consider yourself privileged. I mean, they move around a lot. There's not exactly a hotbed of stability if you're a military family and you go to a military-run schools or whatnot. There was this Fairfax County, Virginia, in this school district. This English teacher in high school, in the junior year of high school, had her class play privilege bingo. Okay. Now, depending on what thread you look at online, the kids were either forced to play this game or could play this game. You know, these commentators use all sorts of different English words with different connotations in them. But the teacher was trying to explain why certain people in our culture are privileged, and for instance, blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans and Asian, the APAC people are not privileged, meaning white males specifically are privileged to get ahead in this society. And to a large extent, I agree with that assessment. Now, I'm male, I guess, last time I checked. Let me check down there. Okay, yes, I'm male. And I'm white, and I'm cisgender. I guess that's the correct term now. It strikes me as kind of a made-up term, but it's a real thing nowadays. Okay, cisgender as opposed to transgender. Okay, I was born a boy, and I grew up thinking that I was male, and there are a certain small percentage of children that don't see themselves as the gender that corresponds with the biological sex that they were born with. Okay. And for some reason, Republicans and fundamentalist evangelical Christians just can't abide this. And as a result of the Republicans thinking that their base, uh, in other words, MAGA heads and evangelical right-wing Christians, uh, will vote for Republicans if Republicans pass these laws um, making life more difficult for trans youth. And I've read up on this extensively. In fact, I have started, although it's on hiatus right now, I have started to be trained as a crisis counselor for the Trevor Project. And I won't go into that any more than that, but 42% of LGBTQ youth have considered suicide at one point in their growing up period, and a large percentage of them have actually succeeded in ending their own lives, which to me is a tragedy. But I'm going to be mean in saying this, but I firmly believe that Republicans and evangelical right-wing fundamentalist Christians don't mind all that much if youth and young adults in the LGBTQ community do succeed in that, because that means there's fewer of them. And okay, I'm going to stop there with that. Okay. But anyway, then if they were all just gone off the face of the earth, then what a wonderful world this would be, according to Republicans and right-wing evangelical conservative Christians. Okay. All right. Anyway, I couldn't find who actually created this privilege bingo. If anybody out there can research this and let me know, well, let me know at themidnightskeptic@gmail.com. Okay. Speaking of Republican and right-wing hatred of the LGBTQ community, there's a Mississippi mayor, Gene McGee of Ridgeland, Mississippi. He is withholding $110,000 in library funds unless the library purges all LGBTQ books from library shelves. Tonja Johnson, executive director for the Madison County Library System, said that Mayor McGee told her that homosexual materials in the library went against his Christian beliefs. So he doesn't really have the power to withhold these funds, but he's taking it, whether he's entitled to that power or not. But okay. A quick bit about Florida's Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo. Okay, now I've talked about him before as, well, he's been appointed by Ron DeSantis. He has to still be confirmed by the Florida State Senate. And in this State Senate committee hearing, where they questioned him, because, you know, they want a knowledgeable, competent Surgeon General, at least Democrats do. I'm not sure that Republicans care about his competency. Anyway, he was asked by a Florida Senate committee member. I forget what her name is. I didn't write it down here, but it's online. And she asked, do you believe that vaccines are used to fight COVID-19 are safe and effective? And then his answer was rambling, to say the least. And first of all, he said, "Oh, thank you for your question," and blah, blah, blah. So again, I would say that the question is a scientific one, and it's one that is answered with data. So the question is informed by data, on specific outcomes and specific therapies. So that's the scientific question. And you might think that I'm making that up. I'm not. This is a transcript, of, written down. You can get this online. If you want to Google Latipo, Joseph Latipo, somebody has taken the time to actually transcribe what this jerk actually said, and with the ums and the waffling, this is exactly what he said. Okay, the result of this, in this particular Florida Senate committee that were initially interviewing Joseph Latipo, the three Democrats on the committee, I think there was 5 Republicans, the 3 Democrats walked out in protest because this Joseph Latipo just would not give any kind of an answer to their question. And this lady on the committee, a Democratic lady, repeated her question 3 different times. And she specifically said, Mr. Latipo, or Dr. Latipo, I forget what she called him, but she said, do the vaccines that are fighting COVID-19 work, and are they safe? Yes or no? And he just wouldn't answer the question. Now, he's a member of America's Frontline Doctors. And I've gone into this on a number of shows. He's one of these, white smock-wearing America's Frontline Doctors that had this press event, I guess, in front of the United States Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C., and this was back in June of 2020, right when the COVID-19 pandemic was just gaining steam, I guess you might say, for that. America's Frontline Doctors was founded by an L.A. doctor. Her last name is Gold. Oh boy. Well, I'm not going to go into that again, but I've talked about America's Frontline Doctors on a number of occasions, and I'm telling you right now that they are a group of quacks. Quacks. Let me say it again. They're quacks. So if anybody has any connections to the America's Frontline Doctors out there that might, by some stretch of the imagination, be listening to this show, you know where to find me. I'm not going anywhere. Okay. Okay. New page. Okay. Now, I said in my, a while back in my introduction here that my show is carried on anchor.fm, and they gather podcasts and YouTube programs like this one that I'm doing, and they use a number of platforms to disseminate it around the world, one of which is Spotify. Now, Spotify has gotten into, I guess you might say, trouble over the last couple of days because Neil Young, let me refer back to my notes so I don't miss anything. Okay, Spotify announced that it is adding a quote-unquote content advisory to any podcast episode that includes discussion about COVID-19. Well, why do they feel the need to do this? It's because of Joe Rogan. And the advisory will direct listeners to a COVID-19 hub that will include links to trusted sources. And one of the trusted sources will certainly not be America's Frontline Doctors. Okay, also, Spotify will publicly post its longstanding platform rules. And this is a quote from the CEO Daniel Ek, capital E-K, of Spotify. The quote, "These are rules of the road to guide all of our creators," I'm one of them, "from those we work with exclusively to those whose work is shared access on multiple platforms." I guess that means Anchor.fm. And again, that was a quote from CEO Daniel Ek. Okay, what this is all about is misinformation put forward on the Joe Rogan Experience show. And I'll talk a little bit about Joe Rogan. Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and others, have removed their music from Spotify. It's, I think Spotify originally was a music agglomerator, and you could ask Spotify. And I have a Google Assistant, and it's right over my desk, and then one upstairs in my bedroom. And then after I jump out of the shower, I say, "Okay, Google, play Truckin' by the Grateful Dead." And
Truckin' by Grateful Dead. Sure. Playing on Spotify.
"Okay, Google, turn off the music." Anyway, you got a taste of what I do, and get out of the shower and ask it to play whatever music you want. And then I guess after a while they decide what type of music you like, and so you don't have to just keep asking for individual songs. Anyway, that's what Spotify is. And I guess recently they have started carrying podcasts, and I think they may even carry my podcasts. I'm a creator. And anyway, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, as a matter of protest, have asked their music to be removed from Spotify if it continues hosting the Joe Rogan Experience, on which COVID-19 misinformation has been spread. Also, Nils Lofgren, he's of the Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, said he is taking his music off of Spotify and is encouraging other musicians to do likewise in support of healthcare professionals. I understand, and this isn't confirmed, I'm not sure about this, but I think Dolly Parton may be removing her music from Spotify as well. Okay, 250 scientists, doctors, and nurses pinned a letter to Spotify that said, this is a quote, "By allowing the propagation of false and socially harmful assertions, Spotify is enabling its hosted media to damage public trust in scientific research and sow doubt in the credibility of data-driven guidance offered by medical professionals." Here. And data-driven and scientific guidance, that's anathema to Republican MAGA heads. Okay, now a little bit about Joe Rogan. I mean, I wish I was half as successful as he is. And when asked about this controversy about his misinformation on yesterday on CNN on an interview, he said, and this is a quote from him, "I'm not trying to promote misinformation, period. I'm not trying to be controversial. I've never tried to do anything with the podcast other than just talk to people and have interesting conversations." Okay, in his video, he said he would try to balance controversial guests by having the mainstream perspective on right after them. Okay, now I have not ever listened to Joe Rogan, a complete episode. In researching this piece, I found a couple of his um, not complete shows, but blurbs that he said, and then I researched him a little bit. Uh, if any of my thousands and thousands of listeners out there have not listened to or even heard of Joe Rogan, he's not a bad guy. He's certainly not a right-wing ideologue. I think he probably voted for Donald Trump in this 2020 election. But he describes himself as rather lefty in his social liberalism. One thing he's adamant about is defense of the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. Second Amendment are the gun nuts, and I'm not sure whether he himself is a gun nut or not. Now, he was a commentator on WWE and the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship, I think. I never watched those things. But he's 55 now, and he has a good presence on his Joe Rogan Experience show. And one of the things that he said on one of his shows was, there is no need for vaccines if you're young and healthy and you exercise regularly and eat right. I have no problems with that, but we need everybody to get vaccinated. His Joe Rogan podcast started on December 24th of 2009. So he's been around for 12 years, 13 years, whatever. That's the date that the Joe Rogan Experience, which is what he calls his show, launched. And on May of 2020, about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, it was acquired by Spotify. He had been doing this Joe Rogan Experience show for a while, and then I guess Spotify made the decisions to start including podcasts on Spotify that you could ask to hear on, Google. Brought to you by your Google Assistant. Okay. But on the limited amount of listening that I have done to the Joe Rogan Experience, he's not a bad guy. He really does get controversial people on his show. And one thing that I would, hey, Joe Rogan, if you're listening to this, and I don't think you are, I would really try to balance out more of your more controversial jerks that you have on your show, and try to research some real, honest-to-God information, as I try to do. I spend a lot of time researching these topics that I talk about, and it's kind of a pain sometimes to try to find all these things. And it's kind of like homework after a while, and that's why I've gone back to doing it every week rather than every other week, because every week I can just get all these things out right quick and then forget them. Except that I can't forget them, because there's always new twists to these controversial issues that I like to talk about, like book banning and how utterly horrible Republican politicians are. Okay, enough of that. I urge my thousands and thousands of listeners out there to just check out the Joe Rogan Experience and, see what you think of he and the guests that he has. All right. Enough of that. Okay. CFI, the Center for Inquiry. Now, they are the parent company of this magazine that I subscribe to, Skeptical Inquirer. And they are sort of the parent company of a number of the James Randi Educational Foundation got absorbed into CFI. And anyway, I'm a skeptic. I mean, that's the name of my show, for God's sakes. The Skeptical and the Midnight Skeptic. And there's skeptical chapters of the skeptical organizations sprinkled all around the world. Here in Northern California, there's a skeptics group up in Santa Rosa that I'm, nominally still a member of. I go every now and then. And there's the Bay Area skeptics that meet down in San Bruno at an Irish pub down there. And they sponsor over in Oakland talks by scientists and reality-based people that, and they talk about skeptical things. Okay, I've gone to a number of them over there. And then, let's see, what else? Down in Monterey, Susan Gerbic organized the Monterey area skeptics. And she is a fellow of the Center for Inquiry. And her claim to fame is that she has run stings on psychics. And she quoted she invented the term grief vampires, which some of these psychics purport to be, because, they put on their shows and their audience members come up and say, well, I've just lost a loved one, and then this psychic will say, I see, Uncle Ted. He is very happy now, and he wants you to fill in the blank, whatever. But anyway, Susan Gerbic has organized a number of stings, and that's her claim to fame. She's not a card-carrying member of the Skeptic Society, and the skeptics have a annual conference down in Las Vegas. They didn't have it last year because of COVID, and I don't think they had it the year before that because it's usually in October. And I attended two of these. I think it was 2017 and 2018. Anyway, that's where I met Karina Hilliard. She attended with her dad. And her dad's a nice guy, really nice guy. I got along well with him, and she's nice herself. And I found out what I know about her as a herpetologist and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, CFI is this organization, the parent organization to a number of sub-organizations. They have brought suit against CVS and Walmart. Okay, well, what does CFI have against those two? Well, CFI's legal director, Nick Little, presented oral arguments in the D.C. Court of Appeals over CVS's Walmart's deceptive sales and marketing of, are you ready for this? Homeopathic products under consumer protection laws of the District of Columbia. Okay, now this was on Zoom. They had to do it on Zoom because there's no in-person court hearings anymore, at least temporarily. And so I followed the legal arguments on this Zoom court hearing. And there were 3 judges and then a court secretary or whatever they call them, and then 2 lawyers, one for Walmart and one for CVS, and then Nick Little, the legal director for CFI. Yeah, he's from England, I think, originally. Anyway, he speaks with an English, very elite accent. Okay. CVS and Walmart's attorneys accused in their briefings CFI of being obsessed with homeopathy. Nick Little responded by, they aren't totally wrong in that accusation of obsession. We at CFI are very, very determined to ensure that this multi-billion-dollar-a-year fraud on consumers is stopped, and we will explore every avenue to protect consumers. Another CVS and Walmart legal argument is that CFI has no standing, that CFI doesn't really count as a consumer protection organization. But according to Nick Little, the good lawyer, that argument falls apart under even the slightest scrutiny. Nick Little said, what CFI does is consumer protection, whether it is challenging psychics to stop acting as grief vampires, pressing state governments to properly regulate charlatans, in his words, like acupuncturists and naturopaths, or suing in the D.C. courts to stop mega retailers misrepresenting homeopathy to their customers. Opposition to pseudoscience isn't a philosophical position alone. It has a purpose, fighting quackery, again, his words, and that is about consumer protection. Here. Homeopathic medicines, and oh boy, it's been about a year ago since I really teed off on homeopathic practitioners, but physical and chemical laws of nature are violated by the claims of homeopathic medicines. The main one is that water molecules have memory of what they had in them at one time. Oh man, if none of my viewers and listeners will be unable to see the folly of that argument. What homeopathic preparations is in a, I don't know, I've never been in a factory where homeopathic medicines are concocted. Boil, toil and trouble. Okay. Have water, and they put in some theoretically active ingredient into it, and then dilute it. Various gradations of dilution to where what you actually get in the bottle may not have any molecules of any active, supposedly, ingredient left in it. And homeopathic creators respond by saying, well, the water remembers the stuff in it. And then another claim of homeopathic sales and marketers is that like cures like. So way back when homeopathy was invented back in the late 1800s, and I forget the guy's name right now. I'd have to look back in my notes, and I didn't write it down here. Uh, if you want to cure a disease, you have to ingest or whatever a small bit of the disease-causing agent, and your body will heal it. Well, okay. Well, first of all, that isn't true at all. Like doesn't cure like, and water doesn't have memory, and some of the homeopathic healing agents, these little bottles of stuff, water is what it is, are so diluted that it is impossible for it to have any healing power at all. And okay, the big gripe is that at CVS and at Walmart, they have drug shelves, for instance, like painkillers. Okay, right next to the Tylenol or the Advil or whatever painkiller they have, they will have some weirdly named homeopathic remedy. And in the case of Walmart, they have their own house brand. They make their own homeopathic medications. I mean, it can't cost them that much because all it is water. But anyway, they put the homeopathic painkillers, for instance, right next to the Tylenol. And customers coming in there to buy this stuff and looking at, okay, section, painkillers, they will assume that the homeopathic medicines work, like Tylenol and Advil and whatever else. And that is deceptive, and that is the genesis of this lawsuit brought by the organization Center for Inquiry. Okay, enough ranting about that. But so CFI, in addition to all the other philosophical arguments they make against spirituality and ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot and cryptids of one sort or another, including the Loch Ness Monster and all of that kind of crap, they tee off on alternative and complementary medicines. And okay, let me go back here a second. Okay, acupuncturists, totally phony. Naturopaths, naturopathic doctors are, I'm going to say it here, if there's any naturopaths out there, just go ahead and sue me. Naturopaths are quacks. Okay. Yeah, geez, time check. All right, I got a little bit of time left to go. And this last segment is quite disturbing, and as I've said on numerous occasions when I'm ranting against Republicans, that Republican politicians and the Republican members of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag are hateful, fearful, miserable people. And okay, this country would be much better off if we just didn't have Republicans. Okay? I've ruffled a few feathers by saying that. And let me reiterate again that I do have a small handful of relatives and a small handful of friends that are Republicans. And none of them are dummies. None of them are unkind. I just don't understand why they remain Republicans because of crap like this that I'm going to talk to you about right now. Winding its way through the state of Florida, Oh, DeSantis land is a bill, House Bill, Florida House Bill number 1557, and Florida Senate Bill 1834. It's been nicknamed, although the Republicans that made up this bill don't call it that. It is the Don't Say Gay bill. Okay, in it, a school district may, this is a quote from the bill itself, may not encourage classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in primary grade levels, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. Okay, there are plenty of younger kids, beginning even in preschool, where they claim to their parents or whatever relatives are listening to them that, for instance, a little boy says in some way, shape, or form that, I really feel like a girl. Okay. I want to say most cases, and I'll stick with that. In most cases, they will, those problems, and it's not really a problem, but that condition will resolve itself, and the young kid will just, grow out of it. Okay, those that don't should be, and I've said this on my shows before, given unconditional love, and certainly not the hatred that Republicans are raining down on them. The Republican legislators have labeled these bills the Parental Rights in Education bills. In both versions of the bill, parents would be able to sue school systems for damages should these topics come up in the classroom. And if Republicans maintain or expand control of our government at both the federal and the state level, I have called such a situation the Republican dystopia, and I stand by that. Okay. The bill's sponsor is Representative Joe Harding. He's a Republican, of course, from Ocala, capital O, C-A-L-A. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with Florida, where Ocala is. The wording is factually vague, but the intent of it is clear. It is a Republican plot to ban LGBTQ history in public schools. Politically, the bills in Florida and there are many other Republican-controlled states where bills such as this are winding their way through the hate-filled Republican legislatures, reflect a resurgence of cultural war politics at the state level and the religious rights expanding moral panic over the advancement of LGBTQ rights. The right to just be here, to exist. That upsets Republicans. Okay, Tennessee, Montana, and Arkansas are also states with some form of Don't Say Gay bills pending. Unable to stop our country's embrace of queer people, the awful right's best chances now stand with exempting itself from the new social order. In other words, freedom of religion. It may soon be illegal for teachers to even mention Bayard Rustin. All right, who's he, you might ask? The openly gay co-organizer of the 1963 March on Washington, or to educate kids about the AIDS crisis. Republicans' parental rights agenda. Unfortunately, in the last Virginia election, which Glenn Youngkin won over Terry McAuliffe, Terry McAuliffe made a big tactical mistake when he said, I will not allow parents to dictate what our kids read in school. And I'm not sure if that's a exact direct quote, but that was the gist of it. And of course, white parents, especially in places like Fairfax County and, I can't remember the other county, Loudoun County, came out in droves and voted for Glenn Youngkin. Well, you're paying for it now, Virginia. Probably they're going to institute or introduce a bill in the Virginia state legislature to sign up parents where one parent will sit in each classroom and judge what the teachers are teaching, and about critical race theory. And I assure you that critical race theory, as it really is not taught anywhere except in law schools or graduate economic courses. Oh, boy. Okay. I need this is leftover coffee from this morning. It's got a little bit of Irish cream left in it. Oh, ranting really takes its toll on my voice box. Anyway, here comes my play out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, that'll do it. I think 58 minutes is here, and so KPCA has cut me off because of their own announcements, but I'm still blathering on YouTube. One of these days, I'm going to have to get my cat up here on top of my desk and introduce her to the YouTube people out there, the cat that I pet that keeps me sane and keeps my stress level down to manageable levels. Okay, so until next week, and again, this is going to be broadcast on www.kpca.fm on Sunday the 6th at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight back on the East Coast. Okay, take care, people, and think logically and vote for Democrats across the board.